class. So basically, retail would run till 6. And that, yeah, that just gets people in for their afternoon, then they can go off and hopefully have dinner somewhere or go to wherever they're going to stay. But at this point in the plan, there's no night or evening classes planned. You know, as someone who's starting a new business, I'm very hesitant to like commit to like I'll never have an evening class. I mean, certainly I want to be a good neighbor and work with the community. So if we need to have that conversation, I can. But at this point, it's the 9 to 12, that 2-hour break. Again, gives people a chance to go to retail, gives my staff time to turn over the room and clean and have lunch, and then 2 to 5. So, and then retail closing at 6.
So no late night cooking parties planned?
Not at this point. No, I like
Thank
to go
you.
to bed early.
Thank you.
I'll follow up on Mr. Dyer's question as well. Let's say growth is good and 2 years down the road, people want to do outside events or cooking classes, whether we're talking like amplified music or anything like that. Is that a thought at all where we need to address amplified music outside or any type of music outside at this point?
I don't think so. What I could see maybe in the future is, let's say, there's some event in town, or I know Gordonsville has like an antique fair in early November. Maybe I have a vendor who wants to set up a tent and sell antiques. Again, that would kind of happen during the day. I guess I'm not answering your question. Yeah, I don't have any thought on that. If there was a bigger public event, it might be something like a cookbook author is giving a talk, and instead of a class, we want more people to come, or we have a bulb sale in the fall to tie in with our gardening class. But it's really not. It's really meant to always be a boutique experience. It's not kind of get as many people in the door as possible, kind of a business model. And it's really marketed, and the idea is, drive down, take a micro vacation, a small weekend, really relax, unplug. So it's not the kind of thing where like, oh, and then we're gonna have live music, and then we're gonna have a beer garden. Like that's not the vibe. It's come and connect with other people in class, and then relax, and then enjoy what the community in the surrounding area has to offer when you're not in the class.
Perfect. A follow-up question, Mr. Nichols, for you, since we've just discussed the parking. Just so I don't misspeak, when will Jamie be involved when there will be a determination on exact number of parking spots that are required on his side of the house?
So parking is regulated in Article 14. We have very specific regulations about that. But of course, the way that the ordinance is written, it does give some discretion for site characteristics, and, that the Planning Commission may alter those requirements. So it can be as you make it, so to speak. And since we're doing a special use permit process here, it's an appropriate time to define those terms, what they are. But as for when Jamie gets involved, because the building is was a gas station previously, the applicant will file a change of use application, which will require a number of things. It'll require plans, contractor drawn or engineer drawn plans of the building and how it's going to be modified into what use group within the building code. It'll require an SAP from the health department, which is a safe and proper, so an analysis of the water supply and wastewater characteristics, and if the drain field can handle the new proposed activity. In land disturbing activities on the property, if more than 10,000 square feet is disturbed, an ENS agreement in lieu will be required. You have to adhere to all the stormwater management practices and erosion, those things. But those are simply administrative functions of any activity. It's nothing that's more intense than, any other by right activity would be, just normal regulatory items.
Okay.
But, Jamie will get involved when Jamie's our building official, will get involved when there is when the change of use application comes in, so when she applies for permits.
And I know y'all have discussed that probably as well, but wanted to bring it up since the panel's here in front of you as well, since we're talking numbers and kind of longer-term
Yeah,
strategy.
So I read the county code, and my understanding from the county code is it's 10 by 20 for parking, and then like a 16-foot lane behind for turnaround. And so that's kind of what's been guiding the planning and the measure, and, you know, measuring. I haven't really calculated, I mean, I did look at how many parking spots based on business and size. But yeah, that's how we've been kind of trying to measure, like, how far we would extend the blacktop, what's needed, and how that parking would just be designed.
Are there any follow-up questions? Go ahead, Mr. J.
Actually, a question first for clarification for Mr. Nichols. In thinking about possible conditions here, are specific statements in the description in the proposal, are they legally considered as conditions that have already been agreed to? For example, the 12 students.
I would say no,
All right,
because the
so-
applicant is presenting a concept.
Okay, so nothing in here is considered a condition.
Unless you state so as a condition of the permit, then no, you are, without any conditions, you are saying this use, as we define in our ordinance, and if not defined, general vernacular.
So
Good point, Mr.
I
Grumner.
would suggest in starting consideration of possible conditions that we look at those. The applicant seems to be content with 12 students in a class. If that's, there are some of these statements in here that just start to say initially. So I suspect that we need to put a closeout on that as well. So potential conditions, we're talking about 12 students in a class. Is that a potential condition that you're willing to work with?
Yeah, in the cooking school, because that's all the space that
Well, yeah.
the
and
space
you
will allow for,
You
so.
also said in the crafts and then something about in the garden.
Yes, if that, that's fine. That's what my current business model and like all my revenue projections and things like that is no more than 12.
Okay,
So that's not an issue.
so if that's acceptable, I would suggest as the first.
12 students?
12
a class, 24 a day.
Well,
I mean, it seems like a lot to bind her so tight on this thing. I mean, it seems like this would go with the I really want to make a bunch of mocking jokes at us about upward-facing lights and amplified music and all, but none of that really applies. It all goes right with the comp plan. It's kind of a holistic type of deal. If she could partner with agriculture in some way, there's even more positive direction. And then also you kind of get into some of the Airbnb stuff and tourism. Tying this proposal up too tight just seems like we're not doing a real service to anybody.
Okay, rather than leave it open-ended, is there a suggestion? I suggest we don't leave it open-ended.
so, I'm sorry, I
Yeah,
can
thanks.
respond to that. My one concern about that is, so for the cooking classes, for instance, the hands-on, the max is 12 just because of what the space allows. And again, that kind of goes back to my comment earlier of, it's a different feel, it's a different experience for the customer to be in a small class than in a class of 18 or 20 people where it starts getting chaotic. So again, that model, I don't have any plans for expansion, I guess, from the physical room. My only concern on what we define as class is because we are so both close to Washington DC and Charlottesville, I could see a situation where someone comes out with a new cookbook and they go to DC and they do a book signing, and they're going to Charlottesville and they do a book signing, and I can get them at my property to do a book signing. So that's not a class, but maybe, we set it up and maybe there's 30 people that come and just sit kind of auditorium style and listen to the author talk. Obviously, again, we get into parking and cars, and I understand all of that, but that would be my only concern on just making sure we don't define class so tightly that it couldn't be a situation. Or if I wanted to do a spring open house or ticketed garden tour, in conjunction with Virginia Garden Week, again, where it wouldn't be everybody come, 100 people come, but if I wanted to, like, okay, in addition to whatever the garden clubs are doing, you can reserve an opportunity to come and tour our garden while you're down here looking at everybody else. That could go on throughout the day. And again, I understand, I'm the same way, I don't want 50 people coming on my property all at once to be overwhelmed. But I just want to make sure, like, to this point, like, we just be careful how we define class to kind of create some opportunity for flexibility for those kind of opportunities.
Excellent discussion point here, because what you're describing
Is-
is what we consider events.
Her,
So that's a different category too.
yeah, there, exactly.
The two.
Her clientele base seems like a rowdy bunch, so I appreciate this.
That's really
Won't, with the change of use, won't Jamie Wilkes do an occupancy on the building itself?
I believe he will.
So wouldn't that be a limiting factor? And then if she's doing book signings, which I hope you have 100 of these things a year, I'm skeptical. She's allowed to do, what, is it 15 of these?
It's
per-
14. Conducted no more than cumulative 15
Yeah,
days
there
in
you
any
go.
one calendar year.
So she's
like-
allowed to do that anyway, and she doesn't have to ask anybody's permission for any of that. So I really do, I see it, I mean, if you want to put a cap on it, I mean, the parking part plays into it, the occupancy of the building and change of use plays into it, and that's certainly above us, working off of Virginia Building Code. Who knows what addition that is at this point. But I mean, what's a realistic number? Do you want to put 50 on it and just guess at this? I mean, that's really what we're talking about doing here.
Well, and if I can, I think when you just were talking about some of these extra ideas, that's, gosh, I'm going to say DC word, scope creep, where, again, we're looking at just the two things. The classroom is in front of us on this special use permit, and then the general store. So those are the two things we're, as a body, are supposed to be looking at, just those two. When you start talking about events, it is, I mean, Mr. Carpenter's right, those are events. But Mr. Jackson's right, too. If you just have 15 of them in a year, that's a by right activity. So if you want to stick with this as the core, I think you're in good shape from what you've told us about the interior of the house. Mr. Jackson's right. I think the building code and Virginia code are going to probably dictate really your maximum levels, not more than probably 12 or 15. And then if you do have those unique gatherings, then those will be your by right events. So yeah. How does that sound? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I got a question for Mr. Nichols. It sounds like to me if she adds 200-foot parking lot, and then you gotta have 2 travel lanes along with that parking lot, you're gonna start getting real close to being over 10,000, and you're right there by that river. And by that river, you know, like DEQ can be, you just might wanna pay attention to that.
I'm quite sure that the applicant and I will have a conversation if the special use permit is issued about next steps. And so along with that, we'll talk about the land disturbing activity as well as any other zoning and building permit required. As with any project, it is site-specific as what can be done. It sounds like the applicant is doing her due diligence now and determining what she can do. She's been digging into the codes and ordinances. She's working with contractors to see what can be done on the site. And I'm quite sure if it's not practical, it wouldn't happen, but this is the logical first step here.
I do think Mr. Carpenter is correct in terms of, just for safety for neighbors and just kind of precedent. If we did put a cap, and by the way, if we put a cap and you're so popular that you can start charging all the amount you want for these hot tickets. But I would, if we want to start with the stabbing point, given staff, given guests, I would think 30 would be something appropriate for that size if we want to have a concrete number in there that they can't exceed. Do y'all feel like that's in line if we're putting a threshold, or
Zach, I just kinda agree with Clay.
just skip it?
Don't tie our hands. Give her a chance to explain.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
I'd really love to see you have opportunity to have nighttime classes too, because I know that will really pull more opportunity for like the couple situation that you're talking about. And I definitely agree with Clay, like, let's expand the opportunity, and the current regulations are already going to kind of limit how you are using the property.
Yeah, I think Clay may be correct about not needing to put a number in if we consider the fact that the building official is going to determine the maximum occupancy of the building.
Okay, so quick shake of heads, no occupancy required on this one or suggested. I see some behind us shaking their heads too, so, okay. Moving on from that point, any other, since there are no conditions or proffers at this point, anything else that someone has thought of that we should start?
Question, Mr. Chairman. Well, actually, kind of related things. Do you know if the, yes, it's over there. Back in ancient history, when I was first around here, the store had gas pumps there. Do you know if that tank is still in the ground?
So just a little bit about me. My second professional job, I was the state lobbyist for the Missouri oil industry.
Okay.
So it's Missouri, not Virginia, but I'm very familiar with underground storage tanks.
So you knew that's a potential problem?
Yeah, I've talked to the state and have pulled all the records. It looks like they've pulled them out, but all of that paperwork was filed in the early 80s, and I believe Virginia's laws and regulations didn't go into effect till 89. So there's, from one year to the next, sometimes it doesn't always line up. But anyway, so the short answer is I've done a FOIA. I've talked to the underground storage tank department, and we've talked through that. At this point, it's in my banker's hands. They know about it. They'll have an environmental team come in and do an assessment. We think, based on the paperwork, all the tanks have been removed. But yeah, my bank is looking at that now.
Okay, so you're well aware of that. And extending from that, the store itself, you mentioned something about eventually using it, but there's not much really in here in your description. If you want to, can you be more detailed on what you plan to do with the store building?
Yeah, so when I first open, the plan is the living room of the house will be a small gift shop. I'd like to move the retail and expand it to the store. And the retail would be, when people take a cooking class and, we're using a pasta machine or a grater and they don't have it, those products would be featured in the store and they could go and purchase that along with, other merchandise. Or we're doing a basket weaving class and people think that's great and they want to buy a kit, that would be for sale in the store too. Initially, I think, especially when the gift shop's inside the house, it would really just be for students. One, just I don't want to staff it and deal with people kind of walking in off the street because it's such a small space. Once it moves to the Old Country store, then it would be open to the public. But hopefully people come and spend money there, but it's really, it's also really tied into the classes to, like I said, people come there and they bake a pie and they want to buy a pie dish or such. We also talked the last time about, and I've had a couple conversations with local producers. It's like, maybe I could sell my beef to your students, or there are some Department of Health regulations regarding how their product is produced and under what food and safety regulations they're operating. So certainly, I would love to work with them and offer that. That's very undefined because it'll really depend on each producer on how they're regulated, under what health codes they're following, and whether that allows for a wholesale reselling or not.
Okay, so it sounds like you're planning eventually to actually use it as a general store or country store as it's defined in our ordinances.
Yes. Sorry, too much.
Yeah, well,
You and I are going to different general stores. I don't have pasta makers in my general store. I was looking more for knee-high or something like that. I mean, good Lord.
yeah, actually, that's my point.
No, it's more of a boutique store.
Yeah. Yeah, it raises the question, how is it going to fit in the ordinance definition of a country store or general store. They're synonymous, I think, in our ordinance, but
I think it was quoted last
Good.
time, and it's something like such as,
yeah.
and I'm falling under, my inventory's falling under the such as.
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
Please.
I'm just going to say that we do define general store in our ordinance. And while it does say, it gives a maximum size of 4,000 square feet or
Not a
less. And then just gives a list of, such, the following articles and lists everything you'd find in a convenience store. So it's broadly defined.
It's pretty general.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
The store, I believe, is 1,200 square feet, but I don't know how mu, there's a couple of rooms separated off by a wall that will probably be storage, so I don't, maybe 800, 600 to 800 at actually retail floor space.
Yeah, maybe kind of problem solving here, taking Mr. Jackson's suggestion, perhaps sell some pork and beans and cans and knee-high, and your general store.
We need more stores in the Radiant area.
There used to be.
Yeah, exactly.
3.
No,
That would be 4 in the Radiant area that used to be there.
that's right,
so.
that's right.
I'm open to whatever sells.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, and Mrs. Miller, I just have a couple questions for you. And I kind of missed this, well, I just want to clarify a couple things. As far as the parking, is that intended to primarily be on the parcel that the old store was on, or the residential parcel, or kind of a split between the two?
It's a split, I would say maybe 70-30, 80-20. Most of the parking will be in front of the old store, and
Yeah.
one of the ways that that parking will be expanded is currently there is a pump island in the center, so that will be removed, and then there's a curb island, so that will be removed, and that allows people to pull straight in for 90-degree parking. And then it'll be expanded, right now on the house, there is some blacktop paved parking area, and it'll basically be expanded down from, that part will be expanded to the street. That allows for that extra space.
Okay, thank you. And are you intending to live in the residence?
No, it'll be a commercial property, it's a commercial business loan. I won't be living there. No one
Okay.
will be living there.
Okay. Well, and then, so, Mr. Nichols, why are we looking at 2 commercial uses in a special use permit in A1 as opposed to rezoning?
Because you have these uses listed as special permit uses in the ordinance. The ordinance provides a path for these to be heard as a special permit use.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you for answering my questions. Just a general comment, and I kind of ran into this with the prior case, which is where I'm at, is, rezoning something that has an intended use that's intended for a different district. Certainly, the store for years was a commercial business. It was A1 for whatever reason when zoning came about. I think it was still operational when zoning came in, but, obviously the house was a residence. It's all A1. We're looking at a strictly business use on the small parcel with the store, and then now it's strictly business use, which I kind of misunderstood the first time, with the existing residence. And to me, I don't know why a rezoning wouldn't be a better option as opposed to more special use permits. That's all, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gowan. Any comment on that one, Mr. Nichols, or?
I mean, the only thing I'll add is that whenever the zoning ordinance was developed, the uses that were stated were evaluated to be generally appropriate let's just be specific. So in the agricultural district, general store, private school were contemplated and considered generally acceptable within the A1 district. except there's a possibility that it may have impact to neighbors, and so it would be appropriate for a public hearing so the neighbors could weigh in, and that there be some conditions or even the right of the Board of Supervisors to deny such an application should the impact to the neighbors be high or not appropriate for the area. But it was decided when the zoning districts were created that these were appropriate uses. Now, if we take a step back from more macro perspective here, and you were going to pursue a rezoning, and you wanted to see a more intense business district through here, I would say you take a corridor up 15 all the way up to Twyman's Mill and make a business district. And then you start heading in a development path that's tremendous. But I don't think that's what any of us want to do. But to simply, there's an avenue in the ordinance for a special use permit here. I think it's appropriate because I do not think that, whether you want to do it or not is fine, but the fact that the avenue's there is appropriate. But I don't like the idea necessarily of just taking one spot and making that a business zone here because it establishes a new district. And I don't think we want to establish a new district that would grow up and down 15.
Thank you for that explanation. All right, any further questions for the applicant or Mr. Nichols?
One more comment. I do love the idea, to say.
Yeah, honestly, I'm not an expert in zoning. I assumed that there would be, the county would be more supportive of the special use because that provides that protection in the future. But I have, as long as I can open the business, I'm agnostic.
Well, and the reason why I opened the questioning with letters to your neighbors, part of this process is hearing from the public and neighbors. So I think we have one more workshop. Well, actually, the next one's the joint, but hopefully we'll have some more input from neighbors if they are concerned, because this process is to allow them to have a voice. So if we do have some, and I hope we do, either way, good or bad or indifferent, we'll weigh that as well. So,
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to
please.
go right off of what you just said. Mr. Nichols, have we got public hearing signs on this front? And Mr. Aces, we do?
Yes, sir.
Good, thank you.
And it looks good from the road I drove by the other day, and it's right there, so you can see it. All right, any questions for the applicant before we go to public comment? Seeing none? Okay, we will go to public comment now. I saw your hand. If you'd like to do public comment, just address your way to the microphone, state your name and your location.
I am kind of looking at the map. I think the other one that was just black and white is going to be. My name is Caroline Merritt.
Excuse me, ma'am, point of order. If you would, if you want to stand, that's fine, but if you'd hold the microphone or speak into it, thank you.
All good ideas, and I hope I won't talk too long. I truly hope the current owners can be granted a modified plain hunt for an attractive and profitable business with limited scope, which truly fits with Madison's rural and agricultural master plan. I can tell you that we've never had a discussion of parking lots in Madison Mills before. I've lived there for 25 years, and I assume that the area will look a lot better when we have a plan with less scope than has been determined. I need to point out that I did get a letter from Ms. Miller, and it might not be the one that she mailed latest. It came, I think, mid-March, and it talked about having 12 parking spaces for art lessons and selling the artist things in the store next door. So I want to touch on 4 things: the size and scope of this special use permit is alarming because I am about less than 200 yards from the farmhouse. I'm also at a location that had 12,000 square foot mill long ago, and I never thought that that would give me any leg up on putting a special use permit on my house that's close and looks at the parking lot. So I'm going to say the nice part first. I'm going to go right down here. Okay. Many Madison residents would welcome the beauty of plant and seed sales, gardening tools, or a great fruit market with some pie. But the slippery slope of more than 50 tourists and locals. So what we're talking about is we got 24 cars coming in on the low end, coming in the morning, leaving before lunch. That comes close to, that group is 50 people if it's 2 to a car. The road looks like it's about from here to that cabinet there. It's got potholes all over the place. I think we can work with the Department of Transportation. But we are talking about very little acreage that's not taken up with the parking lot or electric lines, water lines, and there are 6 buildings on it now. And I know that she has proposed to get rid of some of those buildings that were farm buildings. One was a chicken house, one was a granary, they say. Oh, and then that may change. But I'm not considering, if you have 25 cars coming in the morning, then the store is going to be open at the same time. I'm not going to be down there counting the numbers of parking spaces, but I'm very concerned about that little teeny road being a business area. How many of you have ever driven down Madison Mills Lane? It's 1/3 of a mile long. It's crooked. And I can just wonder how many large produce, beverage, and grocery trucks will be roaring along. We could raise our hand if anybody thinks that they're really going to go 25 to 35 miles an hour. I haven't seen a truck go that slow in a long time. We are more than happy to work together to ask VDOT to clean up the area owned by VDOT, improving the scenery and the trees at the dead end for applicants, proposed buyers, and our neighbors alike. So I am immediately joining the parking lot and the house plat. And the distance between some of these buildings on 2 plats is literally, well, I had to kind of slime me in there if I were ever to go between the store and the next little building that's a garage. So it's difficult to think about it being a special use permit that's going to last forever. So you can't tell the people that come to the public store that they don't have a parking space, because as far as to that wall, there's a giant dead end that belongs to the Virginia Department of Transportation, and it's very messy, and I hope we can clean that up. So, Verdu's own a 30-foot right-of-way, which is on my driveway, and I'm concerned about the trucks, the cars. I didn't finish, so 24 cars coming out, 24 cars going back out to eat lunch, if they're not eating their own cooking, which probably they are. Then 24 cars coming in the afternoon. You got the trucks to supply the things. I'm pretty sure if people are going to be cooking and eating gourmet food and they come from Washington, D.C. to do it, they're going to want an alcohol license. I don't know much about grown-ups, but I know if they're going to be eating good food, they're going to want an alcohol license. And that really seems to me, if you got 100 trips in and out, like it's kin to a restaurant and bar. It really feels like it. And it doesn't matter about the hours. People can drink at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. They can drink anywhere they choose, but they will need a really special permit, I think, to do that there. The country stores were invented to supply things to farmers. I grew up on a 350-acre farm. We had 40 boarders at a time. We raised our own beef, pork, had a 4-acre garden. If we're going to, Ms. Miller is going to be using agricultural products from September to April, I'd like to know what that is. I mean, tell me the top 5 products. What would it be? Spinach? Well, it's
We don't have, this is comment only, sorry, we
The
can't engage with questions.
SUP just seemed that it was saying they would be related to alcohol, to agriculture, and I couldn't find that. So it does seem like a big project for that area. And it seems perhaps unneeded. So if you look at the big maps of agriculturally zoned Madison County,
I can accommodate. Give me just a minute.
I think my husband's got them. Anyway, you know. What's that? Hold up the menu.
Mr. Nichols is going to pull them up on digitally on the, up here.
There you go.
That's conservation, green, the white is agriculture. Okay, all right. So I am confused about the scope. If you have a public store, you can't say no more people can come in it, right? I mean, it doesn't matter how many parking spaces, they'll park in my driveway or squeezed in somewhere. Will there be handicap parking added onto the 30? Will there be truck parking spaces added onto the 30? So more concerned about the traffic than while people are parked. The competition in this area, I went by Yoder's today and brought everybody some postcards where you can see probably 6 or 8 acres out there, and you can see 27 different farm animals. Grelin Nursery has cooking classes, wine classes. They've got 350, 370 acres. Every plant known to man, that's about 7 miles away. So we've just opened up a restaurant that would seem perfect for this project in Orange. It's got the chairs, got the kitchen, got the working catering kitchen. You know, 40 people can sit down. I know that's a different thing than she's asking for, but I'm saying, is this something that's needed? It's definitely, I think, the range and size and scope of what is appropriate with the traffic. And, you know, that's just some of the things I'm thinking, and I'll turn in a letter. But you should make a stop at some of these different places that are offering farm animals and things that you're just not going to have space for, that are really bringing in the tourists. And the only letter I got from Ms. Miller, and it was very nice, was saying that it would be an art school. So I'm a little bit scared that 3 weeks from now, it's going to be a different kind of school, and it's going to be bigger, if permitted. Thank you.
Excuse me, ma'am, what was your name again, please? 'Cause-
Caroline Merrick.
Merrick.
I live just adjacent to both parcels, well, to the house parcel in 66.6.
Okay,
And
thank you.
Actual Madison Mills, we've got a stone wall where that big mill was. I thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, are there any other public comment? You do?
All right. My name is Chip Quaich. I live at Madison Mills, and there are only 4 houses in Madison Mills. And mine is one, the Merrick's is another. The residence here that's being discussed for this property is the 3rd, and then Jeff Parks has the 4th. The letters that went out to notify people about what was happening went to the others. I'm one property away. 4 houses. Only 1 extra stamp, and I could have been notified. I just found out a few days ago. So I'm here to try to find out more about what's going on. I've hoped something would get developed in that store. I've talked to people about a fishing shop, small country store, different things, and no one's ever thought the business plan would work out, so they really haven't pushed it. When I reviewed this up, I had to stop and think about what the area is. My home is a bit historic for the area. It's on the Department of Interior Historic Registry. It's on the Virginia Historic Registry. It's part of the new district that's being created, the Rapidan, Clark Mountain Historic Area. And it's also listed in the Madison listing of historic buildings. So we're not unknown, but someone from out of town that comes in isn't going to figure out who's who in the neighborhood. So it's disappointing that we're not really dealing with good neighbors trying to identify what's going on. I would love to see something happen in that store, but I'd like it to be within our community. They ought to let people know. Now, I went and did a web search on Ms. Miller, and I found out she's done this kind of work before, which is good to hear. But she proudly touts, start small, then grow, grow, grow. Well, you're proposing a SUP here that's going to go on in perpetuity. Means whatever you do today, whoever owns this 3 or 4 generations later, when my grandkids are living in the family home, I bet our family's been in this home 7 generations. We go back to the 1700s before there was a Madison County. What's this going to let them do? I liked what, I think it was Mr. Carpenter proposed there. There ought to be some limits put on, so that if you come along later and you want to build bigger, they can come back and ask for an exception. I don't want to hear in 5 years that we're going to go and do 100-person venues because by right, I was given this SUP with no restrictions. So I'd really like you to think about what Mr. Carpenter brought up, because I think it's a key point here. When you look at requesting 30 spaces, in the couple of days I've had, I've gone around to various businesses and looked at their parking lots. When I find a place with 30 parking places, it's a pretty big business. It's not a small 12-person operation. So asking for 30 places, asking for a venue capability, buried away in this SUP, there's the word venue in there somewhere. It's just kind of subtly, oh yeah, tossed in. I'm going to do a little cooking school, but I want this venue on the side. I'm not going to tell you how big it'll be. I'm not going to tell you how noisy it'll be. When I look at the property as it is, Mr. Perdue rents the house out periodically to people coming down for alumni activities at Woodbury. There's maybe 4 or 5 of these a year. There'll be 5 or 6 cars there. That group is loud enough that up at my house, we hear them. We hear the party. Now, they're not trying to be rude and obnoxious. It's only 4 or 5 times a year. But this SUP doesn't have many limits on it. Sure, I think there's, 15 for huge events. But if you're talking about 30 carloads of people, 4 people per car, that's 120 people. Sounds like by right to me. And when you got that many people talking around the bonfire in the yard, that's a pretty big party. So I want you to think about what you put into this SUP to make sure it makes sense. Now, one of the other things I worry about is in the zoning ordinances. 14.4.2 talks about the use shall not tend to change the character and established pattern of development of the area in which it wishes to locate. Well, having grown up with the area, knowing what it's been like, T.O. would have maybe 3 cars in the lot on occasion. He had regular gas. He had Supreme, too. So there's probably 2 tanks buried there. The old island's there, the road island, and the tank island. To my recollection, I've never seen that place dug up. So I'd like to know, are those tanks still there? There's a pretty good chance they probably are. He also sold kerosene. Where's that tank? So I think there may be more to this than anybody's really recognizing. Now, you look at the character, small country store. I agree with Clay. Knee-high, you could buy a new pair of overalls, you could buy some Red Wing boots. T.O. carried all of that. I could get 22 ammunition for shooting groundhogs. That was country store. Pork and beans, soup, they were all there. The store was heated with a little wood stove in the middle of the store. I don't think there's any insulation in that building unless somebody's done it recently. And the old fuse box on that thing had just a handful of screw-in fuses. So there's a lot of work that's got to be done to bring that up to a workable building. And is it viable? I don't know. One of the things I worry about is if this all gets converted to commercial, that's no longer a residence. We couldn't have a family move in there and then operate a small business out of the store and have a residence if you turn that into a commercial building. So you're talking about really changing the long-term character of this neighborhood if you're not careful about how you write this up. And I'm not arguing with how you do it with SUP on agriculture or just what. I think there's a right way to do it. But I want you to think about what can this be in the future. I wouldn't mind if one of my kids or grandkids moved back and could live there, but if it's now a commercial building, that could never happen. So think hard about what you do. And let's see. The other thing I want to bring up is we're all wells and septic. If you think about realistically how big this place has got to be, health department's got to know that to figure out the septic field. If you say we're going to limit it to 12 people, they're going to limit the septic field size to something that'll handle 12 people on a regular basis. But if you're really granting 30 cars and a few wine tour buses coming in, how many hundred people might be there? That's going to require a special septic field. Is the property big enough, when you look at where the current residential septic field is, to put a commercial one beyond it? I just had to replace a 60-year-old septic field. Health department is very strict about how close can the new one be to the old one. So you go and you move up the hill and you build a new commercial septic field. Some years down the road, if you put no cap on the SUP and they go from 25, 30 people, suddenly saying we're going to do 100 people, oh, we got to do more septic. Is there room for it? Or do they clog up the old field first and then have to build a whole new field and then find out there's no room for it? They're concerns I've got if you don't watch what you cap. This isn't a 300-acre property to where you can say the new field will be a half mile over there. You're stuck with the limits of the property. And the property is hemmed in by the Merricks, the parks, and the road. So they can't exactly say, we'll move our septic field over to where the neighbor's septic field is. That isn't gonna fly. The other issue I'd worry about is wells. I just had to drill a new well. I was telling the well driller, you're probably gonna hit water 250, 260 feet, because I know what we've done with our other two wells. He laughed at me and said, I'm not gonna take your money. I'm gonna hit water about 400. 380 feet, we still didn't have good water. 420, we did. He was dead right. He said the water in this area is not where it used to be. It's harder to get, you don't get the flow, and I got a funny feeling when they go to look at this well, that they're gonna find they've got problems doing a commercial well off what's there. So now if you start putting big septic fields into this property, there's a separation requirement to put in a well. Where's it gonna go? And it's a crapshoot out there when you say, I'm gonna drill here because it's convenient. You might hit water. You might not. And then you have to go over here. Well, how many over here places are there? So determining how many people are gonna be here is gonna be critical to figuring out whether it's viable to actually put in septic and find water. So be careful what you put on there for limits. Those are the key points I wanted to try. Oh, yes, one other point. We get our power from Dominion. It comes across the river. The line goes up the little skyline. It comes through a bunch of woods there. It's notorious in ice storms for getting knocked out. So if you've got a commercial operation going on in a 1900 era frame building, what are you going to require for fire protection? If you've potentially got a bunch of people there, they're doing something, they're trying to avoid the ice, but they're still staying and doing the class, are you going to have a way to protect that building when the fire department can't get there realistically? Sprinkler? I don't know what you need. Think about it, because that area doesn't have reliable power. In the last ice storm, we were lucky, but in the one before, we were out for a week. And we regularly, when there are ice storms or big windstorms, lose power for anywhere from 6 to 48 hours. So commercial property, people's lives at stake, you've got to make sure you've got a way to run it. So I haven't had time to really research everything, but those are just some starting questions I'd like to bring up and get you to think about. I think Mr. Carpenter's on the right track with wondering what really should be regulated, what should be in the SUP, because if you write an open-ended SUP, you might regret it, or your kids are going to regret it. So that's my request. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Additional comments? Oh, yeah, I should say, we do have a requested 3-minute time limit on these.
My name is Randy Merrick. I'm a family physician in Orange, and I know a lot of you. I will make just a couple of comments because I think my wife and Chip has covered it. I'd like to see success from Ms. Miller in her venture. But I think all the questions that have been raised before are certainly apropos. I think also I don't think this is a violation of the comprehensive plan, but I think that needs to have a close look. That's also been a folly for a whole lot of folks. Is it a violation of the Madison County comprehensive plan in any way? This lane that goes, Madison Mills Lane, is basically a dead end, and it is an access to the Rapidan River. And we have a lot of folks from Madison County, Orange County, that come and go down to the Rapidan River, bring their children and their relatives. I've seen elderly ladies get down to the river. We have a lot of folks that are canoe and kayak down from the upriver and take out at the Madison Mills. So there is a lot of traffic in the good months. And I'm concerned about, the children that are running around and this kind of traffic that we might have. And I think that has to be looked at. And of course, we don't have light. This time of year, we have light until, 8:30 or so. But we start looking at the darker months of the year. Is there going to have to be lighting? Lighting up the area, lighting up these parking lots, and what impact that's going to have on the neighborhood. I can't see, at 5:30 in the evening. You're going to have lighting for the people to get back and forth from their cooking classes and all. He's already talked about water and sewer issues. And the gas tanks, I talked to Marshall Gillum, who basically family had this in, to my knowledge, his gas tanks are still in the ground. He thinks they might have been filled with sand. He's not sure, but I don't think he has any recollection, as Chip said, nor does he, of ever being dug up. And I'm not sure if that's an environmental question or not. So those are my comments. Thanks so much for listening.
Any additional comments on this specific case? Is there anyone online, Stacy? No one's online? All right. We'll put that one to bed then and move on to the next case. And if you're an applicant, you don't have to stay around for these next ones if you don't want to. I know it's getting a little late.
Point of order.
Please, sir.
Chairman. So if you don't mind, if it feels appropriate, if you could assist me in drafting your next packet. Having heard the public comment, do you wish to discuss any further conditions or anything to come before you so we can continue to advertise appropriately for a public hearing?
Oh, makes sense. I have some notes here on some things that I wanted to noodle over more. Is there anyone that has specific comments that we would put in the public hearing? What's our deadline to getting it to you, if it's by email, or does it have to be in committee form?
I mean, since everybody's assembled and this is a workshop, this is a great time to have this conversation with the matter, hopefully, mostly settled by the time we get to a public hearing. It's harder at a public hearing to expand greatly on these things. This is the setting.
Then I'll open it. Are there any points that we want to discuss further right now as a group that can lead to either, I know we can't recommend proffers, but any type of stipulations we want to ask with the applicant?
Just to clarify, this is a special use permit application. You can choose to
Conditions.
recommend whatever conditions
Conditions.
you choose.
Chairman, wouldn't this be a case of spot zoning?
Not a rezoning application, sir.
But it's no B1 touching this land anywhere.
They're not asking for it.
What's that?
It's an SUP.
I mean, I think you're following what Mr. Cowan's point was earlier.
We're gonna have a gazillion up in the county before we finish.
I would generally say on the tanks, since I've been in the business for 43 years, I do know DEQ would require that to be closed and abandoned. And you can use an inert material, whether it be sand, slurry, or whatever. They can be in place, and soil samples would have to be taken at that time. So DEQ would have those records. And they originally started in 1986. It really kicked in 1989 and then through today. So I would generally say, and I think one of the people mentioned that thought it may have been sand in it, that would be an appropriate abandonment through the state of Virginia, but that could be checked with DEQ, no question. So I think that part would be something that would be easily found out there.
But is that germane to, as a condition from the planning commission? Isn't that a
So-
DEQ and going through building code and getting your occupancy permit?
Just some additional context there. I am not able to find this because I'm not the one that looked it up, but I do know that Mr. Wilkes looked for DEQ records on this issue. And I'm speaking secondhand here, but I believe what we discovered was that DEQ records show that the tanks were abandoned in place. So they're still there, but supposedly they're filled with sand or something, but I
And
can't verify that.
That is legal, and you can do it in place. You have to do it in place, and you have to fill them with call it inert material, whether it be slurry, sand, rocks, gravel, whatever, so it doesn't collapse. The only condition is that you'd have to take soil samples and send them in on closure. But they can be abandoned on site. That is illegal to do so. That is legal to do so, sorry.
And see, my comments weren't even with the gas tank. I kind of looked over those. I was going to propose that this runs with the applicant in case there is a chance of sell or transfer down the road to someone that may want to have larger ambitions. I know we've done that before in the past, so the precedent's been set that an SUP can run with the applicant. So that would be my one suggestion.
But at the end of the day, I mean, if something is wrong with DEQ, nothing that we say here is going to change what DEQ does or regulates.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I don't have a point with the DEQ stuff.
They
Yeah.
have pretty tremendous authority on those matters.
Including the health department on septic and on wells,
Yeah,
Which is
those factors are.
certainly above us.
Which they already know they have to review the septic on it anyway at this point.
Right.
The septic has to be done.
And the size of the property is a self-limiting factor, based on the amount of area that they can cover with the septic field until they go to an alternative system, which has major cost components playing into it.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I think we're probably past the DEQ part, and that'll kind of take care of itself, I think. As far as the SUP running with the applicant versus the land, if we do that and the applicant does make substantial investment into the property for commercial use, then it reverts back upon sale to A1 without, any commercial uses. That sort of limits, I don't know, puts her in a very difficult situation to invest into essentially a commercial property to have it revert back, is my only concern with that. I'm for businesses in Madison. I like the ideal model of how this could be. I also like giving people room to grow their business and not hem them in, because you oftentimes need that ability, to keep things to be financially viable. And I'm also not in favor of leaving it wide open. And so whatever we hash out here as far as possible conditions, I think are probably worth the conversation.
All right, so I think what Nathan just said in his kindest way is that he is open to potentially having a cap on guests that is documented as a condition in this SUP. Do we want to discuss a number, and especially in presence of the applicant tonight, that the commission feels would quell some of the concerns from neighboring folks and the infrastructure on Madison, the lane there? Or do we still have a split panel that we should interject on what business growth should be?
What if the number's in excess of what the building occupancy is? Or what if it's more than what the building occupancy
Yeah.
is? I think it would put the
Can we put a condition that the occupancy of the business is the, and can that run inside and outside in terms of, no? Yeah.
I mean, you could say that, you know, your occupancy, your maximum occupancy, when the project is complete, you know, determines the number of, you know, total people on the property. I don't know what that will be. We probably could figure that out, and you may not like the answer.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I would necessarily want to see that without knowing what the answer was, because otherwise, you may not accomplish your goal.
Yeah. Yeah, it could go the other direction, and our applicant needs to know what she needs to get for loans as well. So, I mean, every party has a stake in that discussion, so.
Alan, do we know how far the state maintenance actually goes? Does it go all the way to the river where it butts in? I know that was a concern with the driveway and the maintenance of the driveway. Does that go all the way, is the state required for that? Yes, sir.
So the best I can tell, the best I can tell is that the state owns it all the way to where the road quits and all the way down to the river there. But they maintain the road all the way to where there's now a cul-de-sac there essentially to turn around. I think, if memory serves, that's where the end of state maintenance sign is. The neighbors could tell you for sure.
So the maintenance would be on the state and not on the landowners? to
For the road,
maintain that
yes.
Front road, right.
The button was for the bridge that used to be the bridge across the river on Route 230. It's already
Correct.
15, 230. No, it's on 15. That was the bridge on 15 there.
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Chairman, if I may, yeah, I gotta agree with Clay on this. I mean, the size of the parcel, the size of the buildings, is gonna be a limiting factor. And, you know, I might be sounding like an old hippie or something, but this sounds like a sort of a Zen kind of operation. And I can't see where, I mean, I've gone through all the possible things here while y'all were talking about use limitations and hours of operation, traffic and access, parking, noise control, lighting. If they don't have lighting, I mean, surely a business owner is gonna have proper lighting to get their people from the car to the building. I mean, that is to me, signage, health department, building compliance, you know, all that kind of stuff. It's all done, in my opinion. I got no problem with this.
Okay. All right, for Mr. Nichols to go to public hearing. We're going once, going twice on any type of
So-
additions?
I just want to clarify one last thing. I'm not hearing any conditions at all.
I'm
We're
not either,
We're okay with the default. Okay. Very good.
and I think we'll have a spirited debate in a couple of weeks.
Very good.
All right, final points of this one, or questions? All right, seeing none. All right, thank you, Al. All right, the next case number ZOA-05-26-01, the sign ordinance amendment. This is the first workshop for this one. The Board of Supervisors had directed the Planning Commission to consider amendments to the Madison County Code of Ordinances, Appendix 1, Article 12-1-2, parentheses 16, and 12-6-15. Mr. Nichols can enlighten us on this one.
Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, in this case, I'm going to defer to Mr. Wright.
Fantastic.
So this is an amendment of, actually, a proposed amendment of a recently amended ordinance. So I think it was 2023, we did the sign ordinance in response to a U.S. Supreme Court case that had declared a local sign ordinance, I think in Arizona, to be invalid because it regulated political signs. So what the Supreme Court said was essentially the sign shouldn't have to be read by somebody to decide whether or not it's legal or not. So it was a First Amendment violation. So what we did was try to make a content-neutral sign ordinance, and that's where we got 12-6-15 15 about what's allowed in terms of signs in the county. Do you mind going to that one? Yeah, so that's what we did a while back. And the idea from the direction from the board was, let's do something where people can still put out signs around elections. And so we came up with saying at polling locations for 36 hours before and a grace period of 36 hours after, then people can put up signs. And it can be any sign you want. It can be, an election sign, of course, or it could advertise a business, or it could be any other version of free speech. So it doesn't matter what the sign is. It could be for Cowan Roofing. So the problem with it is that it used our definition of temporary signs. But if you go to our definition of temporary sign, you absolutely have to read what the sign says to decide whether or not it can be there. So what we need to do, in my opinion, is amend the definition of temporary sign to make sure it's content neutral. And so that's where we get 12, the proposed language of 12-5. Or, sorry, maybe it's 12-1-15. So this would be the language. Yeah, and then the other, I was giving you a chance to read it, sorry. So then and then the only other cleanup was the one we were just looking at. There was a recent Virginia Supreme Court decision where they spent a lot of time talking about the definition of an election, which means the whole time that people can vote, the 45 days, and they went to historical references of sheriffs riding around on horses and collecting people's votes and how many days that took. And then what does election day mean, which they took to be the final day of the election. So that's the only thing there. Mr. Smith actually provided me with a memo today. We may decide that instead of saying final day of election, we might say the final day of in-person voting. Something just so that it's clear to everybody what we mean when we say election day. So that is a long wind-up for this thing. I turn it back over to you.
Would you like just some feedback from the board, Commissioner Firth on these, or
Could I
feel
give,
comfortable running with this?
can I give you a little bit more background on why it came into being?
If you'd like,
Actually,
Mr. Smith?
the definitions that we have came into being, in 36 hours especially, came into being because there were candidates that were leaving signs on county property, not collecting them during the phases where Mooney was doing yard work. He had to get up, move the signs, put them back. So the issue was in having signs on county property and ignoring the state rules. The state rules have absolutely nothing to do with the sign ordinance. But that's where we came up with the 36 hours because the electoral board enters into lease agreements with private owners for our polling places. So wanted to make sure that anybody's signage was gone within that 36-hour window. And the whole reason for this coming about was the maintenance issue here on this campus.
Right, and I mean, the super simple version would just be no signs, right? But I think the board didn't want to do that, and so this is, I'll say, a reasonable accommodation.
Yeah, and the court did, the Supreme Court of Virginia did spend quite a bit of time discussing election day, but they did not define it. So if election day is when the votes are counted, that's a week after the polls close. That's when we certify elections.
Yeah, we don't want to do that.
Yeah, we don't want to do that. But and I would suggest that whatever we do, maybe we can have it ready to go, but don't pull the trigger until after the Supreme Court of the United States decides Mitchell v. RNC.
I hear you. I think, however, my understanding limited understanding of that case is that's mostly about mail-in ballots and when they get decided, and I think.
But they may well define election day.
I guess if we tie it to the final day that people can cast ballots in person, then I'm not sure that Supreme Court decision is going to affect what we do, or in terms of the sign ordinance. Mr. Smith and the rest of the board, or commission, sorry, is if we go back down to 12/5/16, and again, is just, that parenthetical phrase is just to try to clean up or clarify what we mean by election day. I think this was my idea from that Virginia Supreme Court opinion. I think Mr. Smith may suggest meaning the final day of in-person voting.
Right, because we count votes a week after that. And if a person mails an absentee ballot, for example, on election day, and we don't get it until the Friday after, then we don't count until sometime after that. That person is still voted on election day.
So it might make sense to say instead of the final day of the election, to mean the final day of in-person voting. So, glad we had this workshop.
Well, and I'll break precedent on this one too, and go to public comment first, because I have a feeling public comment on this case. Is that, okay? Is that fine with everyone up here on the, okay? If we would.
Just a comment. If I'm
Go ahead,
reading
Steve.
this correctly, this applies to polling places only, right?
No,
This is
public,
not private property, there's no.
County.
just county property, yeah.
County property, polling places is what it says. yeah.
Well, not
Yep.
just polling places, but county
polling
property.
location property.
See, if I could real quick, I mean, Clay, you can chime in too, but when, you know, when Clay and I were on the board together, we started out with, we don't want signs on county property, too much trouble, all that stuff. And then we had to turn around and say, well, wait a minute, we can't do that in its entirety. So we had to start, that was the starting point, and then we worked our way into this, right, Clay?
That's correct.
Yeah, paying attention to the
And-
First Amendment.
And to try to keep the county property not looking like a trash heap with
Right.
all of these signs coming from the one person has more signs with my names on them. They look terrible. They just trash up the county. I mean, it's just I think the last day of in-person voting is a very appropriate way to do this.
We'll blame early voting then. That's,
Yeah, and early voting is great,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
But the last day is when the county, we should put something up. If not, move on.
all right.
The only issue is whether or not you want to restrict this to polling places and whether or not early voting, which is probably 50% of our vote now, if this is in fact a polling place under the law.
All right.
If it's a mail-in vote or something coming in that's gonna be counted later, the sign don't need to be there because nobody's actually coming into the building.
Agreed. All right, if we will, we'll go to public comment, just so we have everyone's feedback on this one, and then we can have kind of closing discussions for Mr. Wright. Public comment on this case, if we would, and then just state your name, and I should have said it earlier, I didn't think we'd have longer conversations, but please keep it to 3 minutes.
Good evening, all. My name is Brian Mitchell. I, like Jim Smith, am a member of the county's electoral board. So I had sort of an inside view of the little controversy that has led to this effort to change the ordinance. But let me emphasize that my comments tonight are my own. They are not reflecting any position that the electoral board has taken on this ordinance. And I want to make two suggestions. First of all, I fully agree with the county attorney's proposed language, which I do think, the reference to final in-person voting means that you will not have signs here. This is a polling place only during early voting, and early voting ends more than 36 hours before the final day of in-person voting. So by doing this language, you will eliminate a clutter of signs here in the front, which I'm fully in favor of. I have two suggestions for you. The first one has to do with the sentence in 15, It says, except as permitted by this ordinance, no signs shall be erected on county property. I mean, that's language that's in the ordinance now. When the little contretemps arose over the sandwich board out front, there was an argument put forward that language only applied to temporary signs, and that the sandwich board was not a temporary sign, and so the county had no jurisdiction. I don't think that's an argument that ended up winning the day, but there clearly was some confusion or disagreement about what that sentence means. If you agree that no signs means no signs, except as permitted, I would suggest that you do one of two things. Either add, after no signs, add the words of any kind, or simply take those last two sentences from 15 and make them 12-6-16, so that it's clear that they apply up and down the ordinance and not simply to temporary signs. My second suggestion to you arises from the fact that when that little sandwich board made its appearance, it was anonymous. There was absolutely no indication on that sign of who was responsible for it. And it was plunked right out here at the end of the sidewalk. My first thought when I saw it was it would be very easy for somebody to assume that the county put the sign up, that it was a county sign. And so what I would suggest to you, even though there are state laws that talk about disclaimers on political signs, they may or may not have applied to that one. And who knows whether they would apply to the 3 constitutional amendment referenda we were going to be having in fall. So I would simply suggest to you that the county should protect its own interest and say simply that on county-owned polling places, any privately sponsored sign should include an identification of who the sponsor is, so that anybody will know who put the sign up, that it's not a county sign, even though it's on county property. Those are my 2 suggestions for you. I happened to notice this afternoon a little inconsistency that I think you want to reconcile. The new definition of temporary sign says that they may not exceed 6 square feet, which is fine with me. But if you look at the existing section 12-6-14, right above there, you will see that says they may not exceed 10 square feet. So you just need to reconcile those 2 sections, decide whether it's 6 or 10 or split the difference at 8 or what. But those 2 don't match. That's all I have for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Nichols, I think it was 6 the proposed, or Hannon, was it 6 is the new proposed that y'all had just drafted, is that right?
So the way it is right now under the temporary signs, it would actually be 4 square feet is the
4.
current version. I think we decided 6 square feet to give people some more room.
Okay.
We could make it 10, or we could change that one, but, yeah.
I had a question I have too. Is it 6 square feet and it can be double-sided? Does that mean 3 square foot per side?
So, good question. Can we go back to the 12.2? I was trying to make it say 6 square feet per side, and only for it to be 2-sided, so you didn't get like the big 4-sided sign or 3-sided sign. I mean, listen, they're clever people out there. I commend them. Trying to outfox them.
I've got the Word version open. If you have thoughts that you decide on, I'm happy to make modifications as we go here.
On each side.
All right, we'll continue public comment on this one as well, or is it? You're here.
Taller than the microphone here. My name is Clint Hyde. Like Clay, I live out in Radiant. So I wrote up quite a bit more than Brian did, although I'm gonna end up repeating a little bit of what he said. And probably repeating a little bit of the ordinance because I didn't read the ordinance until after I wrote my bunch of stuff this afternoon. So I think one of the things that's being said is that rules for private property are different from rules for public county property, and I'm referring to county property here. I don't much care what people do on their own land. They can put any damn sign up they want. But if we're allowing private signs to be on county property, I would think we would all agree the Madison County Zoning Administrator is the designated authority for signs, and if he is unavailable for any reason, that there is a designated deputy that can act in his place. The size limit of 6 square feet, I would say that's 2 feet by 3 feet, and if you have it on both sides, then 2 feet wide, 3 feet tall, great. That seems like a really good size to be talking about here. I would argue that there should be a style limit, i.e. especially in particular the sign under discussion that was a little awkward here a month ago. Was a nice little sandwich board. Those are trivial. You can buy an example of that over for $50 on Amazon. There's about 20 different variations on it, and they're super easy to get, super easy to use. You pop a piece of paper on the front and the back, and off you go. You just got a handle on top, pick it up, walk away. All great, easy to deal with there. The sign information. Are we saying that the signs can say, well, so that Cowan Roofing can say, hey, it's an election, I'm going to go stick a sign for my business out in front of the county administrative building? Is that what we just said earlier? So anytime you can put a sign out, or is it only in conjunction with an election?
Only in conjunction with the election.
Okay, so I can go stick a business sign out the front door here on April 20th of this year because there was voting the following day? Is that the way that's defined? That seems really stupid, kind of, right? So why would I do that? I mean, nobody's going to come in here to vote that I want to see my business name. That seems kind of odd. But the 36 hours part and removed, 36 or 48 hours afterwards is great. They should get removed right away. And I would argue that at the end of 48 hours, the zoning administrator should be not just permitted, but directed, pull those signs within 5 minutes and put them in the trash, right? If somebody didn't come pick up their sign, then they don't want it, and it should just go away. There are, as Mr. Mitchell proposed, there should be no unattributed signs, right? You got attribution can be like I've forgotten who defines this, but for campaign signs, they have to be paid for by somebody or other, and there has to be a little box around it at the bottom. We should just say, hey, you want to put a sign up, stick your name on it, put the box on there, put your sign up about anything you want, right? But make sure, because the zoning administrator needs to know who's brought this sign over, and I would argue that unattributed signs should get yanked immediately and dropped in the trash. If somebody doesn't want to say, this is my sign, stick it on your own property, but not the county property, right? No signs from outside Madison under any circumstances. Can't have somebody drive down here from Pennsylvania and say, I'm going to roll down to Madison and put a sign up outside their county admin building. Nix on that, I think.
Correct.
Creator of the sign should make an in-person application to put a sign. Come in and say, hey, I'd like to stick a sign out there on Sunday afternoon prior to the election because I want to put a sign out there and say, here's my name, here's my contact info. This is the example sign. The zoning administrator should say, yep, that fits the 6 feet thing, and it's not anything else weird. You're not insulting people here, not putting bad language out, whatever that is. Great. So that, not saying that they have to stick their, if they wish to not have their own name on there, they still have to tell the zoning administrator, this is my sign, so that someone knows. And if there's a sign like this last one that showed up in the middle of the night, out of here, right? You can't just randomly pop signs in and out. And we have, I don't know how much space there is out there that we are allocating as the sign space. So is it the entire campus can be covered outside the 40-foot limit with signs? Then why not just cover it with signs? So you go to a polling place on election day and there's 50, 60 signs out there and it says the same thing, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, over and over and over and over, because people's, well, we got a lot of signs left, let's just stick them out there. That way they're not sitting in a box somewhere. I think that there should be a standard procedure for this process created by the zoning administrator, followed by the zoning administrator with documentation so that somebody doesn't come back later and say, oh, I got mistreated. No, we followed the process. You signed off on it. The zoning administrator signed off on it. Don't argue later that it was wrong because you agreed to it at the time. A sign that is deposited on county property without a proper application should be removed by the zoning administrator immediately upon that being reported and have it trashed within an hour. We don't have time to horse around with this stuff for whatever reason. And then there comes the idea of maybe an unattributed sign could be removed by anybody. If somebody dropped it in the middle of the night, why couldn't I just go pick it up in the middle of the night and throw it out the next morning? Who would know? I would argue that the applicant should be able to request a meeting if the sign got pulled down for whatever reason after having signed off on it as to why that might have happened. A resident should be able to make a complaint about a sign. I don't like this for whatever reason, or I question the validity, followed the rules, didn't follow the rules, etc. If we allow one sign, we have to allow all signs. Anyone can put a sign out. If you go through the application process, yeah, well, at some point, do we run out of room and say, well, I'm sorry, you can't put a sign up because we're out of space? No, you just violated my First Amendment rights because you said I can't do something that everybody else got to do. So what does the proliferation of this actually end up looking like? Now, I like the idea of no signs at all. I think that's appropriate for the county property. There's plenty of private property out here. Somebody needs to stick their signs up, whatever. And when election day, the final day of in-person voting, that's a very nice phrase. You want to put a sign up, go to those other places that are private places and have them agree to whatever you want to do, and all is great as far as that goes. The zoning administrator should be following the procedure to approve sign and desired location. So if you come in and apply, I'd like to put a sign, you do the paper, you sign it, you walk outside with him and go to where the location is that you can put those things, and you say, I want to put my sign here, and he says, yep, that's cool, all is good, right? But, and if need be, oh God, the whole space is filling up, we got to adjust them a little bit, he should be able to do that without that being a big problem. And everybody should kind of get some equitable placement. I don't know how you would judge that, and that's when maybe somebody comes back and says, I don't like my sign being in the back, I want my sign out in the front. If you wish to change your content for some reason, I had it out there for since the beginning of early voting. I would like it to say something else now. I think you should have to apply for a new, effectively it's a permit, not a hard process necessarily, or that you're going to get told not just no, but hell no. But just because we want to know who's putting signs out on county property. And I would argue that there should be some flavor of, agreement by the zoning administrator that the content of the sign doesn't violate ordinary community propriety standards, i.e. no foul language, and other things which I probably can't properly define. And maybe that exceeds or violates somebody's First Amendment rights. You want to put a sign out there on the last day of in-person voting that says, fuck Joe Biden? Well, I'm not sure that we can say that they can't, although I personally find the language usage there a bit offensive. There's probably a better way to imply the same meaning without quite using the F word. Anyway, that's it. I have a couple of copies of all this, right? We'd be happy to send this whole list to anybody via email if there is interest in having the whole list.
Mr. Jackson and Hannah would probably want one.
No, I don't have any question for Clint. I think Clint's done us a great favor. Look how whiny this is. No signs. This is, he's going down the list of everything under the sun. Yeah. I hope if the county decides to put in this sign thing, Nathan brings his signs, I'm going to gather signs from everywhere and just dump them in right out in front. This is just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Discriminate against everybody. No signs. It's against everybody. This is just a waste of time, honestly.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Everybody's leaving signs up all year long. All the legitimate signs are regulated by the Department of Elections. They all have the legitimate things. On private property, you're allowed to put up basically whatever you want unless you're in the town, because you need, I guess, a sign permit or asking for forgiveness later. This should not be an issue that we tackle. And it's not going against free speech. Everybody's got free speech. I think giving public comment at this meeting twice, the board meeting twice at everything, and then there's no rights being trampled here. Good
There's plenty
Lord.
of room to put a sign anywhere that that is not county property.
Exactly.
County property is a really tiny, tiny percentage of space.
Thank you, Clint.
Roger that, sir.
I buy junk cars, by the way.
Just a quick question. Are there already regulations regarding signage at polling places?
Yes.
40, yeah.
There's a distance limit and the attribution is required.
Required for advocacy signs.
Campaign signs naming people. You all have to say paid for by so-and-so, and you have to have a box.
Authorized and
Lots of
paid
things
for by.
Violate that by not quite doing it correctly.
And they will throw them away immediately. Immediately.
There's also the question of VDOT's right of way associated with that. VDOT has the authority to yank any sign in their right of way anytime, and they don't even tell anybody.
I saw a toilet that didn't get that.
So basically, there's no real downside to just saying no temporary signs on county property.
I guess, Mr. Wright, for what we need to give you tonight,
Well,
do
the
you,
problem was the way temporary signs.
do you have enough? or We're good?
Well, I mean, the thing with the no signs on county property would be, like, we have things like Domestic Violence Awareness Month, where victim witness,
But that's a county-sponsored sign.
I don't,
County-sponsored signs are a different story than privately, I drop my sign off at the front door.
Respectfully, if we're going to continue public
I
discourse, can we
agree,
use a
agree.
microphone? Thank you.
Or we can close the, we can cease conversation. I think we'll, do you have enough, Hannon, seriously, since this was officially on the agenda?
what's the direction we want to go?
Yeah, I mean, I think Clay's right, no signs. If we can go that route, if we can't, then less signs the better.
No personal signs, no public signs, no, what do you want to say? County signs are okay on county property,
Governmental signs are appropriate on county property. Other than that.
non-governmental, okay.
Does that get the monkeys off your back?
Does victim witness count as or victim witness week, does that count as a governmental sign?
I'll look into all that. Here's my only concern, and I have
Lawsuits.
lots of respect for this august body. It's ultimately a Board of Supervisors decision, I guess. So they've directed us to take a look at this thing. That can be a recommendation. I'll refine this. Good points about a designee for the zoning administrator. Good point on reconciling 12-6-14. So yes.
Okay.
I can come back with two versions of this, one which is just a blanket prohibition, another one that is a refined version of what we're doing now.
I just heard adding more things to Mr. Nichols' plate, and that's why I'm against it.
Yeah,
so-
that's what we do.
Yeah, okay.
That's what I'm here for, I don't mind.
Well, okay. All right, then I think we are good on
don't
public
need me to-
discussion. No, I think
Great.
you made your
Yep,
points
yep.
eloquently earlier. You did. All right, we'll move on to the next one, our last open business tonight, trying to stay formal here. Case number ZOA-05-26-02, site plan ordinance amendment. This is a first workshop. Staff has proposed an amendment to the Madison County Code of Ordinances, Appendix 1, Appendix A, Article A.9.1, to establish a limit of site plan validity. Mr. Nichols, this is your baby, so I'll let you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we recently had a zoning determination be appealed to the Board of Zoning Appeals. And it was a very interesting argument. I hope you read the staff report, and maybe some of you went through and read that appeal case. But it raised an interesting question and identified a gap in our site plan ordinance. So when somebody files a site plan application and we review it, and ultimately it's approved, our ordinance says that it's valid for a period of time not less than 5 years. So it does imply that there's a limit, and this ties directly to the state code addressing vested rights. And so if you want to unpack all of that, it's in the latest BZA case. But it does not expressly say where something expires or where that plan is dead. So there's all kinds of language in here saying that, that implies that the zoning administrator could extend an approval, but it's not explicitly stated in the ordinance. So the language that I have proposed is not to limit somebody's ability to develop or to cause any kind of a hardship to a developer. If you're doing something in phasing, it's fine. If you're actively pursuing it, fine. If you had to litigate and it put everything on hold and you're working on it, fine. But it's to put a limit on, we got approval to do this project and we started moving dirt and then we quit. 10 years later, do you get to keep going with that same plan? And so this answers the question on when the line in the sand is for when a project is dead. And so that's why I'm proposing this language to be here. And each sentence in there has a purpose that we unpacked during the appeal case as we went through the site plan ordinance. So I'm asking you to consider this as an adoption to the site plan.
Thank you, sir.
I'd really like to see a fee for an application for extension, though, that is not trivial.
I think that that's something that could come up on the next budget year of fees and whatever the term is for doing that.
What is the fee currently?
Well, currently, the fee
500?
for a site plan is, I think it starts at 500 and then it's an extra 150 per acre over. Now, I think we've revised that. I'd have to look to see, starting in July, what it changed to. It's elevated slightly. Something like, oh yeah, first 10 acres is up to, is 500, and then there's an additional fee per acre. So something like that.
Yeah, because the whole good faith thing, I mean, we've got good faith efforts with people running illegal junkyards now. And,
Yeah,
what's good faith?
That's been an ongoing problem as well, but there typically was not a site plan associated with that. So this is to address really, when does a project die? And then, if it's reasonable that.
You're right. I mean, some of the things you've mentioned are certainly, force majeure, which you have no control, but you can dance along, and that's why I'd really like to see a reapplication or an extension fee.
I think that could be handled in the budget season as an addition to the fee schedule. Just another application to apply to extend. It would also give a potential applicant grounds to appeal if they disagreed.
How would do you want us to just digest on this one and then come back with comments or send you emails?
It's
Or
at the pleasure of this body. If you have comments, if you want to give me written feedback, if you want me just to keep it on for the next workshop, great, but this is not an immediate need, but while it was fresh in my brain, what problems were there, I wanted to propose something to you that I believe would fix the problem.
lady and gentlemen, what would y'all like to take it and look at it for a while and then come back with comments, or let Mr. Nichols run with it?
I'm with Jim, I think it looks good.
What do you think down there, Pete? What do you think about this?
You don't wanna know my comment. Here's how I look at it, Clay, and I understand where Alan's coming from and what Alan's saying. Here's how I look at it. If I was a developer, I came in here and I spent all the money, did all the drawings, did everything, and it just worked out to where I couldn't do it in the first 5 or 6 years, 7 years, then I threw all my money and stuff in the trash. And, that's my only concern there. I could spend a lot of money to get nothing. But I understand what he's saying about 5 years too.
Can I go back and forth on this one for a minute? Can we say, but say if somebody files a plan and they file it at the courthouse, they pay the fee, they stamp it, and they file it there, and 50 years goes by, is that too long? What about 100?
Is 200 too long, Alan?
That's what I'm at, well, that's the question. Like, take it to the absurd level.
Too short, Alan? It is to you, not to me.
It's not too short to me, state code preserves it.
But it's not, it is too short for me.
That's the question, though.
But the question is, the man that's putting out the money. It's always about the man that's putting out the money.
Well, can I interject? So, Mr. Elliott, if somebody thought like, hey, this may be a funding problem for me, my site plan, Mr. Nichols, can I get 10 years for this? He would have the discretion under this to give him longer than the 5 years.
Yes,
Could you put language that it's scalable per the request of the,
it's there. Longer validity period is
Yeah,
expressly
yeah.
established.
But
So if
like-
you need, like, housing developments are a great example. It's gonna take us 20 years to build this thing out. In the first 5 years, we're gonna do phase 1. In the next 5 years, we're gonna do phase 2, et cetera. Okay, well, what happens? They build the first house, they don't do their phasing, and then the end of their 20 years ends with no additional action. At what point is that project abandoned on that timeline?
I think what I'm saying, Alan, is can you say that maybe in addition to what Jim is saying, maybe the initial is a 5-year, and then you could have a different fee schedule for somebody who wants a 10-year opportunity, and maybe make it scalable in that way.
Oh, I'm infinitely flexible on the fee schedule, what you want to do for that.
Well, the other thing, if you're looking at 20 years as a number that's been thrown around, that's potentially 5 cycles of our comp plan. So if we don't have some kind of limitations on it, then our hands are tied with respect to that property in our comprehensive plan development. I don't like that.
Well, and that's true, because the development of the property around your subject project could change over time. Comprehensive planning is a very valid point. And so there does have to be some end to where if you didn't pursue your project. Now, if you're actively pursuing your project, of course you should have the right to complete your project. And a hiccup beyond your control probably doesn't do that either, litigation or some unforeseen environmental regulation or whatever it is. Sure, all those things should count as diligent pursuit as long as you are, trying to make that happen. But at some point, when you quit trying to make it happen, yeah, that's where we're at.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think to kind of maybe support a little bit of what Pete is saying is give somebody 5 or 10 years, and you pay a little bit more for a 10-year for the just in case. It's like having an insurance policy, but maybe cap it at 10, and that's the most that you can do.
No, and that's fair. I mean, the fees to keep it alive are fine. Otherwise, you end up in the same problem as RSA has with their, their taps that somebody paid for them, and apparently that meant that you could keep them forever with no sunset provision, and now nobody can do anything. So it's the same.
Yeah, the way this is written, all they have to do, if they want to keep it alive, is apply for the extension.
Yeah.
And if they don't do that, assume that they don't want to keep it alive.
There you go.
Generally, if they were going to apply,
We
they're
do.
going to push forward.
6 months without an inspection, and you gotta apply, you gotta reapply.
So generally, if they're going to apply, right, they're already, the project's already in motion at that point. You say, okay, if I don't have my financing, should you even apply for it at that point? There is phasing, right? It does take time, it does take legal action, it does take that. But I think you've noted that, right? If there's phasing, some complexities or some issues, you can extend those as you go along.
Of course.
I agree that there should be some type of time limit, because I think we were looking at that one from 1971 or 73, whatever, and they said, hey, I want to go back to that. That's well past the time, right? I mean, that's well past the time. But, things come up. But if they're moving on it, right? I mean, I think if you have the room or the capacity to, or the potential to, you know, extend that, then you should. But I don't disagree that there should be a time limit.
Let's say that I go in, I have my subdivision plan, I get it all approved. And once I get everything approved, I go this year and I build one house. By next year, and I build one more house. And I do that for the next 20 years.
I think that sounds like diligent pursuit. You're working on it. You're making forward progress.
So I can still keep it because I can build one every year.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I think this provision drafted by Alan is so full of wiggle room, anybody could do anything they want unless they abandon the project. And if Mr. Wright is happy with all this, then I am too.
Here.
I think the only, and I apologize, this didn't occur to me sooner. I think the only thing I probably need to do is just make sure this is synchronized with, what is it, Virginia Code Section 15.2. You don't have to look it up.
Okay.
But anybody's welcome to. It's 15.2-2261, and it kind of puts a fence around what are the reasons for an extension and when, and if there's changes to laws, ordinance, and regulations in effect at the time of the request. I think maybe that's the only thing we can add in, but I'll work on that and give it to Mr. Nichols.
Thank you, sir.
And we'll have this at the next workshop, and then we'll go
Yeah, I
vote.
would say we'll stick it on the next workshop item, and then if we're satisfied, or if you all are satisfied to make a recommendation, you like it, you want to change it, you hate it, whatever, it's fine. Let's say then we'll go forward to public hearing, or not.
That sounded like it was 99% there. All right, any other discussion on case number 0526-02? Anybody? All right. Well, as we've mentioned, informational correspondence and upcoming public hearings, that's on our own due diligence to go and investigate that. Anything else from the staff? Anyone else? Comments from the commission?
Move we adjourn.
All right, motion's been made, has been seconded, and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right.
I can hear it. I can hear it going. Good meeting.